Hi, hi, hi. All right, we're getting there. We're getting there, you guys. Getting so much closer to where we should be in this lovely book series. Uh, let's go ahead and we're going to pick right up. May 12th. Let me begin with facts. Bare, meager facts. Verified by books and figures, and of which there can be no doubt. I must not confuse them with experiences which will have to rest on my own observation or my memory of them. Last evening, when the Count came from his room, he began by asking me questions on legal matters and on the doings of certain kinds of business. I spent the day wearily over books and simply to keep my mind occupied went over some of the matters I had been examining in a Lincoln's Inn. There was a certain method in the Count's inquiries, so I shall try to put them down in sequences. The knowledge may somehow or sometimes be useful to me. First, he asked if a man in England might have two solicitors or more. I told him he might have a dozen if he wished, but that it would not be wise to have more than one solicitor engaged in one transaction, as only one could act at a time, and that to change would be certain to militate against his interest. He seemed thoroughly to understand and went on to ask if there would be any practical difficulties in having one man to attend, say, to baking, and another look after shipping in case local help were needed in places far from the home of the banking solicitor. I asked him to explain more fully so that I might not by any chance mislead him, so he said, I shall illustrate. I still illustrate. Your friend and mine, Mr. Peter Hawkins, was under the shadow of your beautiful cathedral at Exeter, which is far from London. Buys for me through your good self my place at London. Good. Now here let me say frankly, lest you think it strange that I have sought the services of one so far off from London, instead of some one resident there, that my motive was that no local interest might be served, save my wish only. And as one of London's residents might perhaps have some purpose of himself or friend to serve, I went thus afield to seek my agent, whose labourers should be only to my interest. Now, suppose I, who have much of affairs, wish to ship goods, say, to Newcastle, or Durham, or Harwich, or Dover. Might it not be that it could with more ease be done by consigning to one in these ports? I answered that certainly it would be most easy, but that we solicitors have a system of agency, one for the other, so that local work could be done locally on instructions from any solicitor, so that the client, simply placing himself in the hands of one man, could have his wishes carried out by him without further trouble. But, he said, I could be at the liberty to direct myself. Is it not so? Of course, I replied, and such is often done by men of business, who do not like the whole of their affairs to be known by any one person. Good, he said, and then went on to ask about the means of making consignments and the forms to be gone through, and all sorts of difficulties which might arise, but by forethought could be guarded against. I explained that all these to him. I explained all these things to him the best of my abilities, and he certainly left me under the impression that he would have made a wonderful solicitor. For there was nothing that he did not think of or foresee. For a man who was never in the country and who did not evidently do much in the way of business, he acknowledged an acumen were wonderful. When he had satisfied himself on these points of which he had spoken, and I had verified all as well as I could by the books available, he suddenly stood up and said, Have you written since your first letter to my friend Mr. Peter Hawkins, or to any other? It was with some bitterness in my heart that I answered that I had not, that as yet I had not seen an opportunity of sending letters to anybody. Then write now, my young friend, he said, laying a heavy hand on my shoulder. Write to your friend and to your any other, and say, if it would please you, that you shall stay with me until a month from now. Do you wish me to stay so long? I asked. My heart grew cold at the thought. I desired it much. Nay, I will take no refusal. When your master, employer, what you will, engaged that some of one should come on his behalf, it was understood that my needs only were to be concluded. I had not stinted. Is it not so? What could I do but bow acceptance? It was Mr. Hawkins' interest, not mine, and I had to think of him, not myself. And besides, while Count Dracula was speaking, there was that in his eyes, as in his bearing, which made me remember that I was a prisoner, and that if I wished it, I could have no choice. The Count saw his victory in my bow, and his mastery in the trouble of my face, for he began at once to use them, but in his own smooth, resistanceless way. I pray you, my good friend, that you will not discourse of things other than business in your letter. It will doubtless please your friends to know that you are well and that you look forward to getting home to them. Is it not so?" As he spoke, he handed me 3 sheets of notepaper and 3 envelopes. They were all of the thinnest foreign post, and looking at them, then at him, and noticing his quiet smile with the sharp canine teeth lying over the red underlip, I understood, as well as if he had spoken, that I should be careful what I wrote, for he would be able to read it. So I determined to write only formal notes now, but to write fully to Mr. Hawkins in secret, and also to Mina. For her, I could write in shorthand, which would puzzle the Count if he did not see it. When I had written my 2 letters, I sat quiet, reading a book, whilst the Count wrote several notes, referring as he wrote them to some books on his table. Then he took up my 2 and placed them with his own, and put by his writing material. After which, the instant the door had closed behind him, I leaned over and looked at the letters, which were face down on the table. I felt no compunction in doing so, for under the circumstances, I felt that I would protect myself in every which way. One of the letters was directed to Samuel F. Billington, number 7, the Crescent Wimpy, another to Herr Lunander, Varner. The third was to Coates and Co., London, and the fourth to Heron, Klopstock, and Bilrow, bankers, Budapest. The second and fourth were unsealed. I was just about to look at them when I saw the door handle move. I sank back into my seat, having just had time to replace the letters as they had been and resume my book before the Count, holding still another letter in his hand, entered the room. He took up the letters on the table and stamped them carefully, and then turning to me said, "I trust you will forgive me, but I have much work to do in private this evening. You will, I hope, find all things as you wish." At the door he turned, and after a moment's pause said, "Let me advise you, my dear friend, nay, let me warn you, you will, with all seriousness, that should you leave these rooms, you will not by any chance go to sleep in any other part of the castle. It is old and has many memories, and there are bad dreams for those who sleep unwisely. Be warned. Should sleep now or ever overcome you, or be like to do, then haste to your own chambers or to these rooms, for your rest will be then safe. But if you are not careful in this respect, then," he finished his speech in a gruesome way, for he motioned with his hand as if he were washing them. I quite understood, but my only doubt was as to whether any dreams could be more terrible than the unnatural, horrible net of gloom and mystery which seemed closing around me. Later, I endorsed the last words written, but this time there is no doubt in question. I shall not fear to sleep in any place where he is not. I have placed the crucifix over the head of my bed. I mentioned that my rest is thus free from dreams, and there it shall remain. When he left me, I went to my room. After a little while, not hearing any sound, I came out and went up to the stone stairs to where I could look out towards the south. There was some sense of freedom in the vast expanse. Inaccessible through it was to me oh gosh. I skipped a line, my bad, you guys. When he left me, I went to my room. After a while, not hearing any sound, I came out and went up the stone stairs to where I could look out towards the south. There was some sense of freedom in the vast expanse, inaccessible though it was to me, as compared to the narrow darkness of the courtyard. Looking out on this, I felt that I was indeed in prison, and I seemed to want a breath of fresh air, though it were of the night. I'm beginning to feel this nocturnal existence tell on me. It is destroying my nerve. I start at my own shadow and am full of all sorts of horrible imaginings. God knows that there is grounds for any terrible fear in the accursed place. I looked out over the beautiful expanse, bathed in soft yellow moonlight, till it was almost as light as day. In the soft light, the distant hills became melted, and the shadows in the valley and gorges of the velvety blackness. The mere beauty seemed to cheer me, though. There was peace and comfort in every breath I drew. As I leaned through the window, my eyes were caught by something moving a story below me, and somewhat to my left, where I imagined, from the lie of the rooms, that the window of the Count's own room would look out. The window at which I stood was tall and deep, stone-mullioned, and though weather-worn, was still complete. But it was evidently many a day since the case had been there. I drew back behind the stonework and looked carefully out. What I saw was the Count's head coming out from the window. I did not see his face, but I knew the man by the neck and the movement of his back and arms. In any case, I could not mistake the hand which I had had so many opportunities of studying. I was at first interested and somewhat amused, for it is wonderful how small a matter will interest and amuse a man who is when he is a prisoner. But my very feelings changed to repulsion and terror when I saw the whole man slowly emerge from the window and begin to crawl down the castle wall over the dreadful abyss, face down, with his cloak spreading out around him like great wings. At first, I could not believe my eyes. I thought it was some trick of the moonlight, some weird effect of shadows. But I kept looking, and it could be no delusion. I saw the fingers and toes grasp the corners of the stones, worn clear of the mortar by the stress of years, and by thus using every projection and inequitability, move downwards with considerable speed, just as a lizard moves along a wall. What manner of man is this? Or what manner of creature is it in the semblance of man? I feel the dread of this horrible place overpower me. I am in fear, in awful fear, and there is no escape for me. I am encompassed about with terrors that I dare not think of. It's getting good. We're seeing even more of the fact that the Count is deaf, not human. Oh my god, I can't even imagine, like, figuring out you're locked in a building. Like, an entire fucking castle, just a prisoner. You just, like, came to do a job. Suddenly, you're stuck there. And even worse, the person who's imprisoned you is some weird creature that can climb walls. Ah! That's always my favorite part of the book where I'm like, oh yeah, shit's getting good. Okay, it's picking up a notch. So we'll pick up another day after this. And thank you guys for listening in. I enjoyed it. I love you. Bye.